Is Thor Odinson the perfect teammate in the Avengers? Does he play well with others? We're going to find out. We're going to go through the Avengers scene by scene, and we're going to do it from Thor's POV. We're going to look at his journey to becoming the hero, to working with the Avengers, because we always think of Thor as being the hero who works so well with his teammates. But actually, when you go back and look at the Avengers, it was a real journey for him to get there. He starts off being very argumentative and really not wanting to work with the humans, the Midgardians, and he also has a very complicated relationship with his brother as well. So it is a little different today. We're going through scene by scene, and then at the end, I'm going to give you my conclusion and my analysis about how he works with other people, what his relationship is like with his brother, and how it changes throughout the movie, and it might not be what you expect. So if you want to jump straight to the end, to the conclusions, it is tagged in the recording here, so you can jump there. But otherwise, let's dive in. Quickly before we do, welcome back to Love and Fandom, where we believe the relationship we see on the screen helps us to understand ourselves at a deeper level and have a better relationship with ourselves and each other. I'm Cheryl Muir, relationship expert, coach, certified coach, been coaching for 8 years, and I help women with their relationships. And big fan of the Thor franchise. This is part 3 in the Odinsons family drama. This is a series that we're doing in the lead up to Love and Thunder. So let's dive in. The first thing that Thor says in the Avengers, do you remember what his first line is? I was quite surprised when I went back and saw this. His first line is, he yells, "Where's the Tesseract?" He yells at Loki after he slams him into the ground. So, of course, the first time we see Thor is when he's landing on the top of the Quinjet, stealing Loki in a suspiciously romantic embrace, and then slams him against the ground, and they have this whole argument on this rock. So this is the first scene we are decoding. Where's the Tesseract? Loki laughs and says, "I've missed you too." Remember, this is the first time he's seen his brother since he saw his brother let go of Gungnir, Odin's scepter, and fall to his death. Now, obviously, we know that he survived. However, there's no sentiment here at this time. It does change throughout the movie, but right now, Thor is all business. He is on mission. Then he's a bit more emotive. He says, "I thought you did. We all did. We fought together. We played together. Do you remember none of this?" Loki, I remember a shadow. So there's this massive sibling rivalry between them. We know this. He then says to Loki, he does the typical hand on the back of the neck thing, which is his like affection. "You give up this poisonous dream and you come home." The vibe here in this scene, the relationship he's having with his brother is, "I miss you. I miss you. I want you to come home." Now, this is interesting, right? We know that Loki says in Thor Ragnarok, "Open communication has never been our family's forte." We see this here. Thor can't just straight up say, "Hey, I haven't seen you in about a year. What happened? Let's sit down on this rock over here. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation." Like, what happened? You don't look okay. So what we also see with Thor here is that he's actually not attuned to his brother's needs, to his emotional well-being. Something is not right with Loki. It's pretty obvious. He's very pale. He's got bags under his eyes. He looks exhausted. He does not look quite right. Thor doesn't question it. He's not like, "What's going on?" The only thing he does say is, "Who controls the would-be king?" Loki shouts, "I am a king." They had bicker back and forth, but he's not going, "Look, brother, what's going on? Why are you doing this? What's happening?" Right? He tries to find out what's happening, but he's not really digging in deeper of like, what's actually going on here? What's actually going on here? So, next scene, the fight with Metal Man and Captain America. He's very, very argumentative here. We know he has that banter with Metal Man. Tony calls him a tourist and says Shakespeare in the park. So they're not getting along well. Thor is not getting along well with Iron Man and with Cap at this point. Then he threatens Cap. He threatens Steve, and he says, "Do you want me to put the hammer down?" We all know what happens when he puts Mjolnir on the ground. So there's this lone wolf vibe still, right? He's actually not coming here going, "Let's work as a team." He's like, "I'm going to do this on my own. I don't want to work as a team." He actually says, "I've come to put an end to Loki's slaughter. I've come to put an end, not, hey, let's work together and get shit done. I've come to do this. I'm the lone wolf. I'm the lone warrior. I'm the lone hero." This does change throughout the film. Third scene with Thor. He's in this movie a lot. Third scene with him is the scene on the helicarrier. He's talking to Cap, Bruce, and Natasha. They're at the table. They're watching the view, the monitor of Loki who's in the cell. He's becoming a lot more cooperative at this point, right? He's wanting to work more as a team. So Cap says, Thor, what's his play? He means to lead an army against your people. So he's starting to give them information. Here's what I know. Here's what I know so far. He also stands up for his brother, right? There's that line where he says, have care how you speak. Loki's beyond reason, but he is of Asgard and he's my brother. He killed 80 people in 2 days. He's adopted. So he's standing up for his brother. There's still a respect there. There's obviously an affection. He's standing up for him. I thought that was really quite a beautiful thing that he did. But he's still not on the side of the Avengers at this point. And it seems like his loyalty is with Loki at this point, it seems. But he knows that there is some bad blood between them. Now, something interesting happens with Eric Selvig here. Thor finds out that Selvig has been captured by Loki and is working for him and is being mind controlled. Thor says he's told this person is an excellent astrophysicist, and he says he's a friend, right? He met him in New Mexico, of course. Then he talks to Agent Coulson about Selvig, and he has this banter about what a bilge snape is. We come in here like bilge snape. And Coulson's like, what is that? And he explains what it is, antlers, scales. You don't have that here. So what he's trying to do here is he's trying to understand the humans a bit more. You don't have this animal that we have in Asgard. What's going on? So he's trying to relate to these people. He's trying. He really is. And it's interesting, right? Because in Thor 1, his journey with the humans, with the Midgardians, was protection. I'm going to protect these poor, weak, tiny humans. I'm actually not going to see them as beneath me, but I do know they need my protection. It's very different now because he's going from protecting the humans to working with them and seeing them as equals. And this is quite the journey for Thor. We see him starting to work with Fury at the end of this scene. He says, Loki's mind is far afield. It's not just power he craves, it's vengeance upon me. He knows that Loki's mad at him and there's some real bad blood there that he feels responsible to try and fix this. He then says to Fury, what are you asking me to do? Fury says, what are you prepared to do? So he's seeing how he can get involved here. And Fury, as we know, is he's doing some stuff behind the scenes, which we find out next in the next scene. So in the next scene, there's an argument with the Avengers. There is that scene where Bruce is working on the scepter and Tony's eating the blueberries. They're talking about S.H.I.E.L.D.'s weapons, and they're saying to Fury, hey, what are you not telling us? Why is S.H.I.E.L.D. developing these weapons? Why are they trying to use the Tesseract for this power? Fury says it's because of him, and he points at Thor. Thor doesn't understand why. It's, of course, because there's this grudge match that leveled a small town, referring to what happened in New Mexico in the first Thor movie. Thor fights back. The Tesseract is what drew Loki to it and his allies. It's a signal to all the realms that the Earth is ready for a higher form of war. He then says, you treat your champions with such mistrust, and then, I thought humans were more evolved than this. You speak of control, yet you cause chaos. You people are so petty and tiny. So Thor's got a bit of a way to go here in seeing the humans as being on the same level. He still thinks he's got to protect them because they're weak and human and mortal and weak and tiny and petty. So he's going to have to get to a point where he can actually work with them. He's not quite ready to see himself as an equal to the humans. Still a little bit arrogant, still quite fresh from the arrogance of Thor 1. He's got a way to go, bless him. And this is why we love him so much, because he's been on the hero's journey. Next scene, Helicarrier continued. He starts to fight with the Hulk, and he actually screams to him, we are not your enemies, Banner, as he's in his Hulk form. It's interesting because he says we. He now sees himself as being part of the team. And then he gets thrown by the Hulk, so humans, not so tiny after all. Next scene, Loki and the cage. Loki tricks him, does the illusion thing. Thor goes through it, goes into the cage. Loki, are you ever not going to fall for that? They probably did this as kids, right? So he's insinuating Thor's not very bright. While Thor is trapped in the cell, he's watching helplessly. He can't do anything as Loki stabs Phil Coulson and Thor screams, right? He was forming a friendship with Agent Coulson. Now he's seen him murdered and he's powerless to stop it. If you go back into that scene and actually watch as Thor has his arm on the glass on the inside of the cell and he's watching it, he's really, really upset. You can see in his expression how upset he is that his new friend, his new human friend, has been killed. So he's really starting to care for these humans a lot. And then he has a look of really genuine fear and betrayal and confusion when Loki pushes the button and releases him down 30,000 feet. Loki, of course, says, the humans think of us immortal. Shall we test that theory? The whole vibe here, the whole focus and what Thor's going through is that he's being humbled. He is being humbled. He's learning to value the humans more and their lives, their mortal lives, and he's also realizing his own mortality. He is scared when he gets thrown into this cage. The cage falls 30,000 feet. He does not know what to do because he breaks out of it using the hammer. He then lands in a field, approaches Mjolnir, and he's reluctant to pick it up. There's a close-up of his hand opening and closing, and he doesn't go for it right away. We know that when he does this, he's wondering if he's still worthy. Why would he think he wasn't worthy? What's just happened? Well, maybe it's because he lost to Loki and he couldn't save Coulson. And he feels responsible. Then he summons lightning to build a new suit, which covers his arms. And he heads to Stark Tower. Next scene. It's the Stark Tower fight with his brother, with Loki. So first opening words in the scene, Loki, turn off the Tesseract or I'll destroy it. Loki said, you can't. Thor tries to reason with him. Look at this, look around you. Do you think this madness ends with you? And Loki says, it's too late. It's too late. Is there some regret by Loki? Probably. We all know he's mind controlled by Thanos at this point anyways. Thor says, no, we can end this together. So he's really trying to work with Loki here and he's saying, let's end this. We can do it together. Loki says sentiment. When Loki says sentiment, it's as if he's breaking free of conditioning, right? He like sees this flash of his past and memory. You can see how his eyes are moving. And then he, instead of leaning into this sentiment and saying, can you help me? I'm fucked up and all these things have happened. And I don't even want to tell you everything that's happened to me after the Void and with Thanos and everyone else. But I'm in over my head. Just take me to Asgard and put me in the cells because I'd rather be there than be with the other and Thanos because unspeakable things happen to me. Pretty sure that's canon. Or is it just fan theory? I think it's canon at this point. So Loki says sentiment, and what does he do? He stabs Thor, I would say almost affectionately. He stabs Thor almost affectionately. Thor picks him up, throws him. Loki rolls, he escapes onto one of the Chitauri's sleds, right? I find this whole scene quite funny because Thor's not going to get killed by being stabbed by this tiny little blade. And at the end of the scene, when Loki's rolled off, Thor looks more annoyed than anything else. He looks like an annoyed big brother that's just had a prank played on him. And he pulls out the thing, it has blood in it, and he just throws it on the ground. We hear it clink, we hear it chink, and it's done nothing at all. So obviously, Thor's trying to reason with him. Loki doesn't want to hurt him. He could have done a lot more to hurt him. They're just really having a scrap, nothing too serious. And yeah, they knew that stabbing was not going to hurt him. It's just a bit of banter between the brothers. So final fight, next scene, final fight. Classic shot of the Avengers, the 180 shot. Thor's part of the team now. He's on the team. He's realized, I can't stop my brother on my own. I've tried everything. And he's really forced at this point to accept that he needs help from other people. He needs help from the other heroes. I don't think he's had this before. Perhaps this is the first time he's accepting help from other heroes. Yes, he has the Warriors 3, but he's always been the man, the guy, the hero. Thor's here, he's got the hammer. But now, on Earth, of all places, on Midgard, of all places, he has to be humbled and accept help from the team. It's an interesting journey for Thor. So often we think he's part of the Avengers and it was just easy for him, but he goes from this lone wolf to being someone who's part of the team. And you have to be strong. You have to be strong enough to accept that you need help. Previously, in other parts of this series and other videos I've done on Thor, I've talked about him being very securely attached. He finds it easy to work with others and form relationships with other people. I'll link that video above. He's easily able to form friendships on Earth in Thor 1. He easily forms a relationship with Jane. But actually, what we see at the start of the Avengers is someone who's very much the lone wolf, which is classic avoidant attachment behavior. I'm going to come to some questions in a second where you can look at your own patterns and hopefully ask yourself some questions that are really going to help you on your journey. So he is very much avoidant lone wolf in the first 2 acts of the film, but then by the 3rd act, he's accepting help. Another interesting twist in this final scene, the final fight scene, of which I'm not going to analyse all of it. We've probably all seen it 10, 20, 30 times anyways. Maybe I'm speaking for myself. It's a great scene. It's a classic action sequence straight from the comics. And Thor is now worried about his friend Metal Man. He's worried about Tony. He sees Tony falling down from having been up to the portal. The portal was closing, of course. Natasha was closing the portal with the scepter. Tony was going up to try and redirect the missile, which ends up blowing up the Jatari. So the portal's closing. Tony's falling down. And it's actually Thor who says something first, who does something first. He says he's not slowing down. That's Thor's words. He's not slowing down. He's the first one to reach Tony when Tony's lying on the concrete on the concourse in New York, which I think was filmed just outside Grand Central Station. It certainly looks like it was. He takes Tony's helmet off and he's genuinely concerned. So he is starting to care about the humans and his teammates. And that's a huge arc in his relationship with Tony from how we saw him at the start of the film, where they're fighting in that forest rock place. And he really cares about him and he wants him to be okay. Closing scene, of course, he speaks to Selvig, puts a hand on his shoulder, takes Loki back to Asgard. And the rest, of course, is continued in Thor the Dark World, which we're coming to on Thursday in the next part. So in summary, I've laboured the point here, but one, he learns how to work as a team. He learns that it's not solely his job to save the day and he can't do it on his own. So journey from being the lone wolf to being someone that works as a team, someone who's avoidant to being more securely attached and being strong enough to admit he needs help and being the person that accepts that too. Two, he deepens his affection for Midgardians, which obviously started in New Mexico in Thor 1, but he's not just seeing himself as the protector of them. He is now the person that's working alongside them. He's starting to see them as equals, so he's really being humbled and humbling himself. And third and finally, his relationship with his brother becomes more complicated. Loki's back on Asgard now. He's going to be awaiting the punishment for his crimes. And of course, that's the Dark World. Let's also, as a bonus point, talk about Jane, because Jane is not in this film, but there is a throwaway line. It's Coulson on the helicarrier who says to Thor, by the way, she's okay. They bring her up on the screen. He says, we sent her a project, private plane, handsome fee. So she's nowhere near New York, right? She does say something in the Dark World about, I saw you were in New York. He's kind of got his hands full, though. His brother and the alien army, there's a lot going on for Thor. He doesn't have time to see Jane, of course, but Jane's not in this. So his relationship with her goes nowhere during this film. We will come to that in the Dark World. So over to you, some questions to ask yourself. Where in your life are you being the lone wolf? Where do you need to let other people support you, and how can you do that? How do you relate to the archetype of the hero or the warrior? What does that mean to you? What does it mean in your life? What does it look like? Are you someone who feels that you have that warrior or hero archetype, or is it something you look up to in other people? How can you deepen your compassion for the people who are from a different place than you or have vastly different viewpoints and cultures? I think in this world that we're in, particularly with social media, we think we can say all kinds of crazy shit to people, but actually if someone has a different perspective or a different worldview for whatever reason, how can we listen to other people and be interested and do the Bildschneid thing? Do you not have that there with scales and antlers? No, we have them in Asgard. Do you not have them? So more of a curiosity than a condemnation is the vibe. And finally, who do you have a complicated relationship with in your family? And what is the solution? What is the solution is a easy question, but it's a simple question, but it's not easy to answer. Very simple question, but not the easiest thing. So this is one of the reasons why we love these characters, because they have complex family relationships and interpersonal relationships, their friends, their co-workers, their family. Loki and Thor's relationship is so complicated, and this is why we're doing this series, to really look at the Odinson family and to look at what we can learn about ourselves from them. What I think they did so brilliantly with this family, with, yes, Thor and Loki, but also with Odin and Frigga, though they did Frigga dirty and cut a bunch of her scenes, and Rene Rousseau is a real-life goddess and queen in my eyes. They did her dirty by cutting her scenes, but what they've done with this family, they've made it so real. And even though they're gods and sorcerers, and they can summon lightning and create storms and have all these powers, all these all-seeing powers. We relate to them because what they're dealing with is really human and really relatable. And I believe, we believe at Love and Fandom, that we're doing ourselves a disservice if we're watching this and not trying to learn something about ourselves. And this is why things like writing fan fiction and doing cosplay can be so healing for us and such a creative self-expression, because we're finding ourselves within them and learning more about ourselves by writing about these characters and dressing as them and embodying some of their qualities and getting to know ourselves in that process. So it's a beautiful thing. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, you know what to do. Like the video, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, leave me a comment down below. And if you got this far, please quote, what's the magic word for today? Let's make it hammer. Comment hammer down below if you got this far. I'd be really, really grateful if you did. Thanks for being here. Next video is on Thursday, where we're going to be analysing Thor, the Dark World, and his relationship with Jane and with his family and with Asgard and the Warriors 3 and with Loki. There's a lot of relationships to analyse there. And we're back on Asgard, which is happy days for all of us. It's a really interesting setting and one that I'm really personally drawn to. So thank you for being here. I will see you next time. And remember, you are absolutely worthy of love. Bye for now.